What is up, home dogs? If you are on the IG broadcast, yep, we are surviving from this sinus infection. So, but luckily the grind waits for nobody. So here we are, and I am going to be taking my ladies who are inside of my one-to-one coaching program through a about 30-minute presentation and lesson talking all about protein. Hi, Colton. So I'll be talking about protein and why we need it, how to get it. At the very end, we'll talk about some examples, some recipes, and some recommendations for how to get in some more protein. So it's been about a minute or so, and typically with these Zoom calls, it takes like a minute or two for people to get on. So I'm gonna give like another minute or so and let people jump on the broadcast. But for anybody, for anybody that does have questions or anything you want answered specifically about protein, go ahead and drop it into the comment space or chat space, I guess. And at the very end, when we get through all of the content, I'll be going through and answering live questions here as well as the live questions from my girlies. So I'll give them another minute or so to get on here. And then once they do get on, I'll say hello, address, and kind of re-explain what's going on. But started first with you guys. So as we are going through this, we'll be talking about what is protein, why do we need it, etc., etc. We'll go through some recipes and my tips and tricks for how to figure out how much protein you actually need for your own self and your own body, and then a few other supplement sources if that's something you want to do. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. And so, for the ladies that are on, hello and welcome. What we are doing, I am broadcasting live to Instagram currently. This recording is still going to be, you guessed it, recorded. This will be saved into our Sammy Lee Fitness recording call library. So if at any point, if you're rewatching this, if you're unable to stay or you need to drop off, this is recorded and will be saved for playback for you ladies at a later date. So we'll go through this. It'll take about 30 minutes or so. We'll do question and answers, and then we'll resume the usual calls where you can bring your questions, and we'll go through some other stuff. So let's go ahead and jump in and let us begin. And actually, let me make sure this is recording. We are recording. Okay, perfect. So now we're recording, and let me just say one more time, we're talking about protein. This is all about protein and what you need to know to get the most out of your diet. So specifically, I'll mention as well, this is geared towards fat loss. And so as I'm sharing my screen, you'll notice the title of this whole thing is Mastering Fat Loss or Mastering Protein for Fat Loss. So as we go through this, of course, if fat loss is not your primary goal, if you're a viewer on here, that's totally fine. But there's still a lot of information on here that will help with building muscle and just general health. So as we're jumping in, you all know who I am, but for those that maybe are just joining, my name is Coach Samantha. I've been coaching for, this will be 3 years in this specific business. Exciting. So I understand, as a busy working woman, I used to work in an office setting, and I gained literally 15 pounds just from starting to work at an office job. And for me, it was a lot of difficulty of not knowing what to eat, but also how do we put meals together? How do I cook things at home? How do I bring them to, like, meal prep was just not happening, non-existent. So figuring out how can we do this with the busy lifestyle to make sure you're not breaking the bank or losing your mind. So here's just a little overview table of contents of what we will talk about. We've got the basics of protein. We'll talk about weight loss and muscle building as it relates to protein. We'll talk about the requirements, what you need in a day for each specific goal, some sources of protein, some meal prep and planning tips, and overcoming challenges that are like really common challenges or excuses that I get sometimes. So let's talk about the basics of protein. So first and foremost, protein is a fundamental macronutrient. You've heard macros or macronutrient before. Macros are your protein, carbs, and fats. And those are the big building blocks of the things we need in our bodies in order to function properly, really. So as we're talking about protein, like, yes, of course, it helps with fat loss, it helps with keeping you satiated, it helps with muscle building. But let's not also forget that protein is there for several other reasons that are really important to the body, like cellular structure and function, the regulation of literally every cell in the body. And if you've ever heard amino acids too, amino acids are they are the building blocks of protein. So if you've ever heard those terms used interchangeably, amino acids are what make up protein. So again, with building muscle, but also immune system support, it helps with hormone regulation and also enzyme production. So it's not just about your muscles here, but it also does not just specifically muscle tissue, but helps with repairing, building other types of tissues, especially in relation to exercise, of course. So let's go back to our subject about amino acids. What the F am I talking about? So amino acids, and let me move this. Amino acids are, there's several different types, and so we'll go through basically what the different types are. So there are essential amino acids and there are non-essential amino acids. I'm not going to list out every single one because there are a bunch of words that truthfully I don't even know if I'm saying correctly, but they're also, there's more to know than just the specific amino acids. So when we're talking about these, when I'm talking about a non-essential amino acid, that means it can be synthesized or made inside the body. So you don't need to get it from an outside source like your diet. You can make this in your own body. That's why it's non-essential. But when we talk about essential amino acids, these are not made inside your body and you have to get them from your diet or they're non-existent. That's why they're essential. So non-essential, not diet, essential. What did I say? Non-essential is in the diet, and essential amino acids you have to get from outside the diet. So when you have also probably heard BCAAs before. What is a BCAA? BCAAs are branch chain amino acids. These are the specific essential amino acids. There are 3 of them that are really, really specialized towards muscle protein synthesis and energy production, and that's why you see so many BCAA supplements versus like an EAA, which is all of the essential amino acids, because they are specifically geared towards muscle building. So for general health, of course, we need all of the amino acids, but for building muscle, like, of course, you still need them all. But the BCAAs are leucine, isoleucine, and valine, and these are the amino acids that you really need in your system to help you build and grow your muscles and repair them. So the other portion of this is complete versus incomplete proteins. So if you've ever heard anybody talk about the amino acid composition, what we're referring to here is the complete proteins versus the not complete. So the complete ones contain all 9 of those essential amino acids. So that means that they can provide what your body needs without having to outsource from your diet. So like examples of essential or complete amino acids have all of those essential amino acids. This would be stuff like meat, dairy, cheese, fish, and some plant sources are also complete proteins. These would be stuff like quinoa, soy, like soy products like tofu or tempeh, if you're familiar with those, and some other things like sometimes chia seeds and buckwheat, depending on where we're at with those. But so the importance of this, what does this mean, right? The importance of this is a complete protein source is going to give you a full amino acid profile, which means you won't need to necessarily combine things together to create that complete profile. So the other side then is the incomplete proteins. So this means there's 1 or more amino acids that are not inside of the composition, so you need to combine it with another food to make it a complete source. So when we're talking about this, typically this is more on the plant side of things. So this would be legumes, beans, lentils, grains, seeds, vegetables, those types of things. But what's really cool about this is when you know and understand what the essential amino acids are, you're able to combine things to make them make sense. So, for example, let's just say you're eating black beans that have a lot of lysine in them, but they don't have any methionine in them, not to be confused with the other type of meth. But so with that means you need to combine your black beans with something in order to have a full, complete amino acid profile to really make sure you're getting the most out of your protein sources and grow your muscles. So that could be something like, if you've ever had black beans and rice, that brown rice contains the rest of the amino acid profile, so that when you put them together, you have your full 9 essential amino acids. So for those who are watching with my screen share, you can see all of these examples of amino acids and non-essential amino acids and how we can put those together. And for those on live, sorry, become a client and you'll get the deets. So let's shift gears and let's go ahead and talk about weight loss and protein. And remember, guys, if you're in the comments or chat section, go ahead and put in any questions that you have regarding protein, anything we've just talked about, and I'll answer at the end. So let's talk about weight loss and protein. Why does protein come up in so many conversations when we talk about losing weight? There's several reasons, so we'll go through almost all of them. The first thing is what we call increased thermic effect. That is literally just the fancy word for as you eat protein, it requires more energy to burn than carbs or fats. And so as you're digesting it, you're burning more calories because it takes more energy to break down protein. So it can lead to a slight increase in your overall energy expenditure, which is also terminology for, if you eat more protein, it takes more effort for it to break down, which means your metabolism potentially increases with this. So it can lead to that increased thermic effect. The other thing that's really good about protein is it helps with the preservation of muscle mass. So especially during weight loss, the body tends to lose both fat and muscle mass if you're in a generalized calorie deficit. So consuming adequate protein can help minimize the loss of anything coming from muscle tissue, which also helps contribute to a higher basal metabolic rate, or your BMR, which is essentially how it's your metabolism, how you're burning calories at what rate. So really the short version of that is, because you're losing weight and you are in a smaller body, you take less energy to sustain your life, which also means then as you consume more protein, you can preserve your muscle mass because the protein will help to fuel the muscles. So you're not losing your body fat and your muscle mass in your total weight loss, because again, as you're losing weight, or we're talking about weight, all weight is the amount of gravitational force that the earth is putting onto your body. It has nothing to do with your body fat versus your muscle mass. So as you're losing weight, it's good to make sure that you're using something like progress photos, measuring yourself. If you have a scale or device that can measure your muscle mass or your body fat percentage compared to your overall weight, that's where this will come in handy quite a bit. So all that to say, eat protein so that while you're losing general body weight, you're not losing your muscle mass. That's the short version. So the other part of this is it can help with your body composition, which is really similar to the first point, but that it'll help promote fat loss as it's promoting lean muscle mass, which means you have more lean body mass, which we'll talk about here in a moment, versus your fat body mass. So the other thing that's really great about this is the regulation of hormones. And this is something, especially for ladies, is super overlooked, but protein does influence hormones, especially related to your hunger and fullness cues, which are ghrelin and leptin. And so consuming the adequate amount of protein can help create a more balanced hormonal environment that supports your weight loss. So you're not feeling hungry all the time because the protein is satisfying these hunger hormones, so you're not losing your effing mind. Yay, we love that. I am seeing some comments in here really quick. I do not speak Spanish, no habla español. I took French in high school because I could do the accent better. So I still can't speak fluent French either though, but Adios if you are a Spanish speaker. I think in the future I'll look into getting some Spanish captions for you guys so that you can still understand and tune in. But let's go ahead and shift gears to talking about muscle building and protein. So obviously, we know with generalized weight loss, we've talked about how protein can help satisfy hormones and make sure you're not losing your muscle mass as you're in your calorie deficit. So then, the opposite side of that, in order to get that toned look, is to build muscle as we lose body fat. So incorporating protein into your diet helps support something called muscle protein synthesis. This is essentially just the process of your muscles breaking down and repairing themselves as we exercise. So as we exercise, we damage the muscle fibers, and as they heal themselves, they become bigger and stronger. And that's how we grow muscle. So to fuel that, you need to make sure you are consuming enough protein in your diet to help support this process, especially when resistance training and lifting weights. This is a great segue into the increased recovery time, because especially if you're lifting weights, what we should be doing is training close or to failure, usually 2 reps away from failure. And that can be extremely taxing, not just physically, but also emotionally as well. So as we're consuming more protein, it can help repair and build on those damaged muscle fibers. But again, with the hormone balance, it can help with the psychological aspect of it as well. Also, the cool part about this is something about just generalizing muscle building. If you are in the stage where you're doing a refeed, or some of my girlies here are doing a caloric surplus to build muscle after we've lost some weight, when you're in a caloric surplus, it's the opposite of your deficit. That means you're consuming more calories than you're burning in an effort to get more calories and more energy to your muscles so they can grow. And then typically people will do a cut afterwards and go into a calorie deficit. So eating protein while you're in your calorie surplus is going to be super important, just as important as it is in your deficit, maybe even more so, because the focus is on building muscle typically here. So good for losing and gaining weight in so many ways. So let's talk about how much you actually need. That's probably why most of you are here. So when we're talking about generally, like if you're not trying to build muscle, if you're just trying to literally stay alive, like 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is what you need. I've said a lot of terminology that us Americans may not understand. So really, to be honest with you, like half your body weight in grams is great. Typically it's like 40 to 50 grams is what's recommended for men and women. Men more so on the 50 to 60, women more like 40 to 50. But if we're wanting to lose weight and build muscle, we need 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. What the F am I talking about when I say lean body mass? I'm so glad you asked. Great segue. Your lean body mass is just your total weight minus your body fat. So this is talking about essentially your skeletal and muscle mass. So really it's just like your body weight minus your fat. Is this making sense to everybody? So when we're talking about your lean body mass, what I'm referring to is the part of your body that is not just your body fat. So, and typically, usually this is used in accordance with just specifically talking about your muscle mass. So there's several ways you can figure out what your lean body mass is. One of the best ways is something called a bioelectrical impedance analysis device, or a BIA device. There's a few options for this that you can get online, but a lot of times these are in gyms, in doctors' offices, and really all it does is it sends an electrical signal up through your body, and the current is able to determine based on water what is your fat mass versus what is your muscle mass. So the other way, if you don't want to do a machine, there are also scales. I have a scale. Oh, I should have grabbed it. I have a scale from Renpho. I can link if you're wanting to. I can get that link posted at the end. If you do want the link to the Renpho scale, just drop a comment in here and I can send it to you after the live. For my ladies, you already have this link, so you're welcome. So the other way that you could do this and figure out your lean body mass is by simply just measuring yourself. If you have a tape measure, you can take the tape measure, measure your neck, waist, and hips, and then there's an online calculator that I have linked for you ladies, which really you don't need because I do it for you. But for you guys, I'm sorry, I have to just address what's happening in the comment section right now. I am in a relationship and I'm not interested in a relationship as I am talking about protein. So thank you, appreciated, but let's move on. And Kim is cracking me up. Anyway, you guys, the whole point here, we're trying to figure out your lean body mass. And so the other way to do this, and again, my ladies who are on the call, I do this for you, so you don't really need to worry about it. But there's a graph of images online that talk about your body fat percentage and what that looks like. Ladies who are tuned in and on the call here, you can see this photo. And this is also what I help utilize to help determine what your specific calories and macros should be based on your lean body mass. And that is why your progress photos are so important. So, and really what you'll do here is you'll take your full body weight minus your body fat, and then when you just make that subtraction, that's what your lean body mass is. So once again, we've taken a long version because you know I love to yap, but essentially your lean body mass is literally just what's not fat in your body. What is not the fat? Yeah? Cool. So here's an example. If you weigh 150 pounds, with 30% body fat. We're going to take that 30% times your 150 pounds, and that gives us 45, right? So that means you have 45 pounds of body fat on your body. So we'll take that 45 pounds minus your total weight. So backing up for the people who are visual, you weigh 150 pounds, you have 45 pounds of fat on your body. So 150 minus 45 is 105 pounds of lean muscle mass or lean body mass. So that would mean that 105 grams of protein is what is likely recommended for you to do this. If you have questions on your specific body weight and body fat, if you know your body fat percentage, go ahead and put it in the chat and I can help you figure out exactly what I believe your protein amount should be. Cool? So really, like, knowing your lean body mass helps you to understand how much protein you should be consuming, and helps me as your coach understand too, as we're making progress and as we're losing body fat, that means we may not need quite as much protein, or if we're building muscle mass, then we might need to add more. Cool? Questions? Put in the comments. Ladies, questions? Put in the comments here. So let's talk about meal timing. It's all great to know what and how much to eat, but when? How soon should we be doing this? So before your workout, typically like an hour or 2 hours or so before your workout is great to maximize the energy level. So what I would recommend for a pre-workout meal is something that has easily digestible carbohydrates. So whole grains, fruits, starchy vegetables, something that can provide energy for your muscles over time. So like complex carbs are a great way. So like a sweet potato is a great option here. It's also important to have some protein before your workout to help make sure that you have the protein and amino acids in your system to prevent that muscle breakdown and help support tissue repair, aka help build your muscles as you are going through your workout. But what I will say is we do want mostly carbohydrates, a little bit of protein. I mean, like, depending on how much you get in your day. If your day is 100 grams of protein, 20 to 30 grams of protein is perfect before a workout, which is what I'd recommend in any meal usually. But we do want to keep fats low. And the reason for this is fats take longer to digest. So if you have a meal an hour before your workout and it's super high in fat, you might find that you feel really full or sluggish and you just don't have the energy that you need because your body's still processing that instead of allocating the energy. So it is important to make sure that you're eating the right things before your workouts to maximize your efforts. So again, an example of this high carbohydrate, decent amount of protein, low fat meal, I would say like a chicken breast with a sweet potato and maybe like a little bit of olive oil or tahini or hummus, some sort of really light, small fat to help support. But what I would not say is something like, I know people will say like pancakes are a great carbohydrate before your workout, but if you're using a lot of butter and those types of things in there, it could be too high fat and it could slow you down. So just be cognizant of what you're putting in your body before a workout. I probably wouldn't also say like don't eat an entire avocado and have that be your only thing you eat. You're because we need protein and carbs. So then what do we eat after the workout? That's just as important. And what I want to do first is just bust this myth of the glycolytic window. You do not need to slam food in your face 30 minutes after your workout. Like that, you don't need to do all that. It's dramatic and it's old, outdated research. So as long as you're eating a meal 2 hours after your workout, you're going to be just fine. You're not missing out on any gains just because you're not eating within 30 minutes of your workout. That's silly. So what I would say though is this is a great time to get a little bit more protein. Still make sure you're getting carbohydrates in your system. Fats are okay, but still like not super high fat after your workout because we want to get that energy back into your muscle system as soon as possible as soon as possible, as quickly as possible to make sure that you are healing. So, and after your workout, really before as well, I missed saying this, is making sure you have electrolytes in your system. Electrolytes are those, electrolytes are those minerals that you need in your body to essentially help stay hydrated. So for me, this is a perfect example. I love a good mix of water, lemon, honey, and I have Celtic sea salt, but any sort of salt is great. Sea salt, I love Himalayan sea salt, but that's a great natural electrolyte. You don't need to be going out and buying liquid IVs, because usually they have a lot of added sugar in them. It's a little unnecessary. The honey will provide enough sugar. The salt will provide the electrolytes for you. Like you don't need to be doing all that drama. And usually it's sodium and magnesium are the major things, and potassium that we're missing. So potassium can be like bananas, potatoes. They have a lot of good potassium. Sugar, of course, would be like the honey or anything that's a carbohydrate. And the salt in here is your sodium. So that's going to help replenish everything. Cool. So we know what to eat, or we know when to eat, but like what the F are we actually eating? So let's talk about the sources of proteins. And before I move on, Ali Faye 1725 asked, how much ratio of lemon, honey, and salt? I'm gonna be honest with you. I do it to taste because I do not like it to be too salty, or we're gonna have like an issue because I think that is nasty. So what I'm doing right now, I don't even know how many ounces this is. Girl, I don't even know. This is my mason jar. This is like 20 ounces, maybe 24 ounces or so. And so I will fill it with water first. I'll put in, I think it's about 4 to 5 grams of salt, and then the juice of half a lemon. And then it's right about, it's like a squeeze of the honey jar. When I was tracking, between 5 to 10 grams of honey. There's no way it's more than 10 grams. But what I would then suggest is play with the ratios and see what works well. But I would definitely recommend like a warmer room temp water versus cold straight out of the fridge, because it just won't mix as well. So that's my recommendation there. But cool. And I saw some other questions in here. Colton, I saw you had a question, but let's go ahead. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. So let's talk about our sources of protein. And so like when we're talking about protein, like obviously meat is a great source of protein. But what we want to keep in mind when we're doing a calorie deficit or wanting to lose weight is we have to keep in mind the ratios of protein to carbs to fats to make sure that the majority of that food is protein versus your carbs and fats. So here's an example. If we're talking about chicken, a chicken breast is going to be pretty much almost 100% protein rather than a carb or fat. But if we're talking about chicken thighs, they're a little fattier meat. So typically they will have a little bit higher calorie, but that's because there's more fat content. So if you're really trying to lean out, you're really trying to lose weight and hit the calorie deficit, chicken breast would be a better choice than chicken thigh, unless chicken breast is making you lose your mind. The other part of this is like eggs. Your egg whites are going to be basically all protein, but your whole eggs with the yolk, that's going to be a mixture of protein and fats. So what would be an example of protein and carbs would be something like skim milk. It could be fat-free yogurts, because yogurt is protein, carbs, and fats. If you take the fat out, then it's just protein and carbs. So like a Greek fat-free yogurt would be perfect for this. Beans are more more so carb heavy than something like chicken. So your lentils, your black beans, keep in mind those are typically higher calorie for the protein payoff. So I'm gonna go ahead and list some really good protein sources that are really lean, specifically just protein. Chicken breast, canned tuna, lean fish meaning like tilapia, something like that. Turkey, which could be ground, could be turkey breast, but turkey thigh, again, would be a fattier meat, which would be more protein and fats. Back to our protein only, like protein powder. If it's an isolate, we'll talk about all those variations here. Egg whites, again, seitan, which is vital wheat gluten. Nutritional yeast is very protein oriented, and spirulina is protein oriented. So if we want to also go through some of those more protein and fatty lists, that would be stuff like whole eggs, chicken thighs, turkey thighs, steak, especially fattier steak, ground beef, unless it's like 95.5 or 97.3. There's still fat in there, but it's less fat. So, and that's definitely another point I want to make. If you are shopping for ground beef or ground turkey, make sure that you're getting like at least at the very minimum like 90-10, because you're getting more flavor, but you could always add seasonings and vinegar, stuff that will add flavor but take away from the calorie content. So that's what I recommend there. And then some cheeses will also have protein, but they're usually more fat than they are protein. So if you do have a question on a specific food, on whether that's more protein, more carbs, more fat, go ahead and put it in the chat and we can talk about all of the specific questions you have on this. But also when we're talking about plant-based proteins, or not even plant-based, just not meat, not flesh off the bone, right? This would be eggs, Greek yogurt, quinoa, lentils, chickpeas, tofu, tempeh, seitan, cottage cheese, and edamame, which are soybeans. Those are great options that are not meat, but maybe not necessarily vegan either, that are still great sources of protein. The other thing to keep in mind, guys, is like even though your vegetables aren't super high protein, they do have protein in them. So don't count those out as you're putting your meals together. And this is coming from the vegan that hasn't had meat in what, 6 years now? 2019. 5 years. So promise you won't die. But I say as I have a sinus infection. Not great marketing at the moment. But I want to go ahead and give you, for the plant-based people on here, the high protein starchy vegetables, which would be like, when we're talking about starch, by the way, if you have questions on starchy vegetables, go ahead and put that in the chat. But if no one has questions, I won't dive in. So these would be like green peas, broccoli, mushrooms, kale, spinach, artichokes, all great things to be adding to your diet. And then whole grains as well. Don't sleep on whole grains because they do have protein in them. So especially if you're like, I'm so bored of chicken and rice, what else can I do? Those vegetables I just listed and stuff like quinoa, buckwheat, millet, and I actually even love orzo pasta. It has like 9 grams of protein, which I thought was really surprising per a 4th cup. So like, keep in mind, like, you don't have to just do chicken and rice. It doesn't just have to be those things. You can mix and match. And what I'd recommend and what I do with my ladies and my clients is make a list of all of the vegetables, all the grains, all the protein sources that you like. And then it makes it really easy to go grocery shopping, because then you can just like literally look at one thing on your list and just plug and play, mix and match, makes things so much easier. I'm also realizing on this live, I'm literally like in the captions. Okay, can you see me better? Thank you. Okay, goodbye. So this is something that I get asked about all the time. How do we even know if it's high protein? This is what I call the 10% rule, and I did not make this up. I don't know where I learned this, but this is what I call the 10% rule. So what we're gonna do, actually, do I have something that has uno momento? There's your Spanish. Oh, here's one. And let's do this. Okay, these are going to be real-time examples. So we're looking at nutrition facts. Oh, you can't see it because you have my background. Okay, so for the nutrition facts, let's do the one here first. This is a muffin. This muffin has 370 calories, as you can see on the nutrition facts label, and 5 grams of protein. So when we're talking about this 10% rule, your protein should be 10% of all the calories. That would make it high protein. So if we have 370 calories, what's 10% of 370? You got it, 37. Whoever said it, nice work. So 37, and the easy way to do this is just move the decimal place over 1, or just take off the last number. So like 10% of 370 is 37. So if this muffin had 37 grams of protein, it would be a high protein muffin. But it doesn't. It has 5 grams of protein. If this muffin was only 50 calories with the 5 grams of protein, I would say it's considered pretty decently high protein, but it's not. It's not like you should never eat this muffin. Like, I don't want you to hate your life because I'm going to be having the muffin. But if you're trying to think of something that's high protein, this is not the choice to make. Let's look, on the other hand, this example of chicken breast, which is 140 calories. And before I announce the protein amount, who knows? With the 10% rule, if this is 140 calories, how many grams of protein do we need for this to be considered high protein? Going once. Going twice. Correct! For whoever said it, it is 14 calories. And the reason why we're doing this, and you can work this backwards, like if you see thanks, Kim. If you see 14 grams of protein, just add a 0 to the amount of protein, and if that matches the calories, you're golden. Now, this chicken breast has 25 grams of protein. You see why this is such a good source of protein? It's great. It's good. But also super boring. So make sure that your chicken breast is paired with something that's not going to make you lose your mind by eating it all the time. For the benefit of those at home, we're looking at this one. Nutrition facts, 160 calories. How many grams of protein do we need? I'm covering it. 160. If we remove the 0, is 16. However, these cashews have 5 grams of protein. So I wouldn't call this a high source of protein, especially because there's a lot more fat in here than there is protein. There's 14 grams of fat. So, and as Megan has so kindly announced here in the comments as well, the higher the protein, the more fuller you are, as we talked about those hormones earlier. Cool. If you have questions, put them in here. Let's go ahead and transition to some supplement conversations. And before I do this, girly pops, your supplements are meant to supplement. You do not need a protein powder or anything else to lose weight. The only thing you need is a calorie deficit. Okay, so when we are talking about your proteins, make sure it's coming from the diet, and if you need some assistance or if you need something for when you're in a pinch or you're needing it quickly, that's when you should reach for your supplements. But it should not be like you wake up and have 10 protein shakes a day because, girl, not only is that expensive, but we're gonna have some dietary problems. So let's talk about the milk proteins. The major 2 types are whey protein and casein protein. So whey is typically absorbed much faster. Usually it's not more effective, but it's definitely highly effective at stimulating that muscle protein synthesis, which makes it great for post-workout recovery. And it's high in BCAAs, so it has a lot of those amino acids. And because it is a milk protein, an animal-based protein, we know it's a complete protein source. Remember those amino acids, it's a complete protein. The difference between whey and casein, which casein is a little bit more rapid release into the bloodstream, so this is really useful for if you wanted to take casein for before you go to sleep, or if you're fasting, because it breaks down so much slower that it would be great to have in your system for long periods of time when you're not eating, so you don't get super hungry and lose your mind and jump off your balcony, because we don't want that, do we? So when we're talking about your amino acids though, this is a little lower in the BCAAs, but if you're having a well-balanced diet, especially if you're eating animal foods in general, I wouldn't be too concerned about this. Cool. I can't recommend whey versus casein because everybody is different. And I have heard typically casein, depending on the type, can aggravate your gut a little bit more than the whey. for certain people. I had never ever tried casein in my entire life. This is just my knowledge background, so I can't speak from firsthand experience. But there's also stuff called isolates, whey protein isolate, because where whey protein comes from is essentially just breaking down milk proteins. So as you're doing that, there's also fat in milk, especially whole milk, right? It's full fat. So there's going to be fat in there. So if you have a whey protein isolate, that is referring to removing the fat from the mixture. So like 90% of the entire thing is just protein. So that would also make it lower in calories too. So that's something to consider when you're thinking about what you want to do. The other options are plant-based options, of course. So like soy protein, which is a complete protein. You can do hemp protein, quinoa. Those are all complete proteins. But another thing to do would be blending your protein. I see a lot of mixtures that are quinoa and brown rice or black bean and brown rice. I've seen a few other mixture combinations for this. What's the main one? It's slipping my mind right now, but there's another one that's not soy that people use all the time. Dang it, it's left me, but it'll come back. But let's talk about why. What do you want to look for in your protein supplement? Why is this important? Really, like, the first thing you should be paying attention to is, where is the protein coming from? What's the source? Is it milk? Is it casein? Is it whey? Is it rice protein? Oh, pea protein, that's what it was. Make sure that it aligns with your dietary needs and makes sense for you, especially if you're vegan. You don't want to be getting a whey protein because you will poop your pants. Speaking from personal experience. Make sure also that it has enough protein in it to actually be a supplement, because if you have a protein powder, this is why I have so much beef with Orgain. Orgain literally is like 2 heaping 40-gram scoops for 20 grams of protein. And it's like this much powder. This makes no sense to me. Me and Orgain have beyond beef, but you really want like 15 grams of protein at the very minimum per serving, but you also want to make sure you're paying attention to what is the serving. Is it 2 scoops? Is it 1 scoop? If you're getting a 40-gram scooper, I'm telling you right now, that is a fat scoop. 20 to 30 grams is usually what a typical scooper looks like. So make sure that the scoop and serving size is not gigantic for the ratio of protein you're actually getting. The other thing to make sure is you want to lower fat and lower carbohydrate content than there is protein. There are a lot of products out there. I'm looking at you, Synthesix, that orange one. They have like cookies and cream and like delicious tasting stuff, but like 50% of the entire component is just sugar and additives and carbs. And it's like, this is only 50% protein and it's a protein powder. Like, what's the point, right? So make sure that the ratios make sense. Just pay attention, dude. Read the label. Don't just look at it and go, sounds good, looks like it tastes good, let's just get it. Make sure that it has what you need. And the BCAAs, make sure it has the right amino acid makeup. Ooh, actually, quick plug from bodybuilding.com. But this one is really great because it's 24 grams of protein, 3 grams of carbs. Dang it, you can't see. Can you see if I do this? Can you see it if I do this? Not really. Okay, just trust me. 24 grams of protein, 3 grams of carbs, and 2 grams of fat. So the majority of this is protein, not carbs or sugar or BS. And what's really cool about it too is on the side, a good protein powder is going to tell you the amino acid profile. Remember the acids we talked about earlier. This is going to tell you exactly what's in it and the BCAAs and all the good stuff to make sure you're actually getting what you need. And when you're, let me actually stop. Let me stop there. Let's talk about what to avoid. This is my personal opinion. I don't believe that it is in your best interest to have artificial sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose, or a few other things that are a little sus. The reason why I say they are a little sus is because there's inconclusive research on whether or not, because they've been so recently developed, we don't know the long-lasting effects. That might come out soon. I'm sussed out. So I will not be partaking, but you live your best life. You do what's best for you. So when we're looking at the ingredients, make sure you're checking out not just these main ingredients, but it'll say something like inactive or other ingredients at the bottom. So it's super important to make sure. So like this one is pea protein isolate. So this is an isolate formula. Okay, that's why it's so low in carbs and fats. And guar gum, pink Himalayan sea salt, and stevia. I like stevia, whatever, because it's well researched, it's safe, and we know it's chill. If there was aspartame in this, we would have some Beyond Beef. But again, you do you. But again, like artificial flavors and no, stevia is not on the sus list. I will, if you want a full list, I can give you what's not sus. Stevia is not sus. Sucralose and aspartame are sus, in my personal opinion. And that's all I'll say. So thank you for the Beyond Beef. So I've talked about this a million times, but no, like check the fillers, make sure it's not a high sugar, make sure it's actually protein. And and this is the other thing, when there's something on your ingredients list, sometimes they'll call it a proprietary blend without specifying any amounts. Like it'll say like greens powder proprietary blend, and then they won't tell you what that is. How the F are you supposed to know if that's what you need or if it's safe? Don't do that. If it has a proprietary blend and it doesn't tell you what's in it, that is sus. Not that they're poisoning you, but you don't know that they're not, so it's sus. Let's move on. I get a lot of questions about collagen and creatine. So let's go collagen first. So let's talk first, like collagen is not protein. It is not, let me back up. Collagen is not a protein in the sense of like this type of protein. Collagen helps support significant connective tissues like skin, tendons, ligaments, bones, cartilage, all the stuff that helps keep you together. And so there's several types. I'm not going to talk about collagen for a whole lot unless somebody has a specific question. I recommend hydrolyzed collagen or collagen peptides. You'll commonly see that written, but it makes it more bioavailable, aka you can absorb it easily. So bioavailable hydrolyzed collagen peptides. Okay. The other thing, creatine is the other thing I want to talk about. Creatine is not a protein. Zero protein relation. The reason why it's part of this conversation is because it's a naturally occurring compound that is synthesized from amino acids. So when you're talking about creatine, it can help you build muscle for several reasons, but when we're looking at creatine, we're looking at creatine monohydrate. I recommend 5 grams a day. It can help with your strength, your endurance, your muscle recovery, and even some brain health and cognitive function. It's one of the most well-researched supplements on the planet. And to be honest with you, I would recommend getting creatine before I would recommend getting a protein supplement because especially if you're not eating animal-based diet or you don't have meat in your diet specifically, you're going to have a hard time, pretty much zero time getting creatine. So that's something to really consider. The other thing, if you are taking creatine, make sure that you are drinking hella water to make sure you're hydrated and it can work properly. I have some supplement recommendations on here, but what I will also show you is a really exciting thing from bodybuilding.com. Quick plug. We have actually, hey, what's up, Tarek? Can you see? You can kind of see. There's my kitchen. There's my Christmas tree. But you can see, like, we have these new stores. They're called Superfiliates. But if you go to athlete.bodybuilding.com/Sam15, which is my code, I have all of my personal recommendations inside this website and some clothing too, because who doesn't want merch? Who doesn't want merch, right? So that's just a quick plug. But anyway, back to the show. I have recommendations. If you have specific questions, please go ahead and send those. And I want to dive in really quickly to how do we put together a protein-rich meal? I know this was going to be 30 minutes, but I'm a professional yapper, so here we are. So protein-rich meal. First thing you're going to do when you're putting your meal together is we're going to start by choosing a protein source. Remember, we talked about those protein sources. Make your list of the ones you like, and then you can plug and play. Start with your protein when you're making your meals always, and that will help make sure you're getting protein in every meal, especially if you're trying to do like 20 20 to 30 to 40 grams of protein in your meal, the best way to do it is to just start out your meal with the protein. One chicken breast is like 20 grams of protein, okay? And that's like 4 ounces. So 2 chicken breasts, 2.5 chicken breasts, boom, done. There's your protein for your meal. The next thing is, what else are we gonna put in with this? We wanna make sure that we're not just going like chicken and rice every day, because you're probably, I'm not gonna say it. I am gonna say it. You're gonna get bored. You're gonna hate your life. It's gonna be boring, and you're unless you're like super disciplined bodybuilder type, like it's just not realistic for a lot of you ladies who are walking around feeding your families and trying to live a fun life. And you want to go to brunch, okay? We're not just gonna do chicken and rice for the rest of your life. So, as we are talking about building your base, this is where those carbohydrate sources come from. And if you are wanting to lose fat, remember the calorie deficit is king. So even though we're putting protein in, your next thing should be your vegetables. Really, I should kind of flip these around. We want to talk about like high protein, low fat, you don't really need low carb, but low calorie, like loading up your chicken breast on top of a bed of broccoli, peppers, carrots is going to be super good for getting nutrients into your body and extra water content and making sure that it's lower in calories. And then adding stuff like, of course, brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat pasta. Protein pastas are great. Like I've been doing some I've been doing some tofu and some lentil-based pastas, which add a little bit more protein and fiber too. So yeah. Then after that, you've got your proteins, you've got your vegetables and your like other bases. Then we're going to add in the fats. And that's when we're cooking with oils, avocado slices, that could be nuts, anything that's going to aid in nutrient absorption. And let me just say this really quickly. I have Beyond Beef with low fat or no fat salad dressing because you need fats to absorb so many vitamins, and there are specifically water-based and fat or water-soluble and fat-soluble vitamins. So if you don't have fat, you can't absorb the nutrients. So there's no point to the salad, okay? So make sure you're having some fat. Fat is not bad, but it is high calorie, so just be careful. After those healthy fats, and we're talking like unsaturated fats like olive oil, those are gonna be really good to add in. But also if we are doing saturated fats, like make sure it's not some BS like, sorry, but canola oil, and like do something naturally occurring like butter or avocado. Like the less packaging, the less it's in a box, the better you're gonna be. That's the overall statement. And then of course like herbs, spices, vinegars, mustard, things that are literally 0 calories. I mean, everything has calories, but like less than a calorie. Those are going to be really good to add onto your meals. So I love a rice vinegar, herbs and spice mixes. Those types of things are really good to add flavor to your meals without adding extra calories. So if you're my girlies, I have example recipes. These are inside the app. So these are linked in here. If you want them, I'll send them to you. But here's an example of like a well-balanced high protein day. Your breakfast is a spinach, feta, why did I say it like that? Spinach, feta, sun-dried tomato omelet, and some potatoes. That's your high protein breakfast. Your lunch could be salmon quinoa bowl, and your dinner could be this Indian chicken curry with rice and a pita bread. Everything is super protein based, but it's not chicken and rice and making you want to jump off your balcony. Next, on the go snacks. We're talking about Greek yogurt, string cheese, hard-boiled eggs, beef or turkey jerky. My girlies love turkey jerky because it's lower calorie than beef. Trail mix can be good, but make sure it has that 10% protein. Protein bars, of course, are good. Cottage cheese cups on the go. Roasted chickpeas can be good, but also make sure protein to fat to calorie ratio is where you want it. Edamame, nut butters, those types of things are really good. I have a complete list for my girlies in here. And then I just want to go through some common challenges because I'm not with the BS that you can't get your protein in, especially when most of you just had a giant turkey dinner. Do you have any idea how much protein is in one singular turkey? It's a lot, babe. It's a lot. So here's a common barrier. Like the busy schedule can make it difficult. Of course you can. Definitely. But if we take legitimately 1 hour out of your week to plan and prep your meals in advance, you're going to save yourself time later. Think about the fact that if you're making meals in the moment, or making them ahead of time, it takes the exact same amount of time, but you're rushed. You may not be making the best decisions. And who knows? It may not even be as good because you haven't had time to plan it out. So finding a time on your weekend, or at least picking a day or time for it to be flexible, is really good. The other tip that I will give to this is don't make it its own thing. Like, if you're cooking a meal, make extra servings of the meal and save it so that it can be your meal prep. You don't have to start like Sunday meal prepping. Like, if you're cooking on Sundays already, great. Make that a day that you meal prep because you're already doing it. Lower the barrier to entry, make it easier for yourself. Okay, really quick. Other things. Social settings can make it difficult to get protein in. Absolutely. But be proactive. This is your journey. It's not your friend's responsibility to make sure you're getting your protein goal. It's your responsibility. Okay? So be proactive. Look at the menu. If there's nothing on the menu for you, eat something ahead of time and then go, or bring something with you. You could even stop somewhere else if you really need to. Make it happen, girl. You can make it happen. Yeah, and making sure too that you're getting the right protein or portion sizes for your protein, like measuring cups, a food scale. And if you're using the palm of your hand, this is a great measurement tool. This is like 1 serving of protein. So if you're out to eat and you don't know if you're getting enough, is it the size of your palm? You're probably good. Yeah? I fast forwarded. Skipping meals, lack of info, lack of preparation. These are all things that can contribute. So, all right. I know I said I'd talk for 30 minutes and it's been 56. So, professional yapper. But thanks for joining. Let's go over questions. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here so that I can go back to this chat. And I don't even know if my girlies have put any questions in here, but let's just look. While this is loading, I'm going to go back up, and if you have questions, please put them in the chat so that I can address them. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Oh yes, this was my proposal from a guy from the Dominican Republic, which I guess I just fumbled the bag, really, because it's cold AF here in Kansas City, and it's about to snowstorm, so ay caramba is right, Colton. I fumbled the bag, but I Miss Roman, hello, welcome. Good to see you guys. We're looking for questions. Thank you very much for your proposal. Very much appreciate you. Cool. Okay, Colton Cugno asks, I love using olive oil as a substitute for butter, but why is it better? It's not better. It's not. It's just a different choice, and it all depends on your specific body and the nutrients that you're needing. Like, animal-based fats have gotten a lot of like poop recently because I think like the media is just trying to, honestly, this is my tinfoil hat. I think the media is trying to push a lot of these easily more mass-producible. It's something that can be made a lot more of. You can make a lot more olive oil faster than you can make a lot of butter, and it's a lot cheaper. That's not to say it's better or worse for you. What I would pay attention to is how does it make you feel? Olive oil is an unsaturated fat, so that's great. But butter is a saturated fat. That doesn't mean it's evil or bad. It just means you should probably be limiting the amount that you're eating more than you're limiting the amount of olive oil you're consuming. The reason why, this is a very short version, is there has been research potentially linking saturated fats to blockages in arteries and causing heart problems and liver problems and kidney problems and stuff like that. So it's not that one is better than the other. What I would do is literally just like gram for gram, like take 5 grams of olive oil and 5 grams of butter, see how far that gets you calorie-wise and fat-wise, and how it makes you feel, and if it adds the flavor you're looking for, then pick the one that works best for you. There's no right or wrong here. Ultimately, everybody's going to be different. For me, it's olive oil because butter makes me poop my pants. So if that's the case, I would go with olive oil. But revisiting this too, I just wanted to make it clear when we were talking about electrolytes, if you're looking through the chat here, my go-to beverage for electrolytes is not Liquid IV. It is water with honey, lemon, and sea salt. 100% recommend. I have no specific recipe. I just let the ancestors guide me. So, okay. Somebody asked, Oh, my proposal. My man, hello. I like to drink a lot of coffee and I drink it in large quantities. Would that affect my weight? Ooh, this is a loaded question. I would need more information. With your coffee, are you drinking black coffee or are you adding milk and sugar to it? Because it could definitely be impacting your weight if there's just more calories in it than you're meant to be consuming, right? Calorie deficit is king. So then if you are drinking just like black coffee, usually a cup of black coffee is like 4 to 10 calories depending on how much you're drinking and what it is. So like coffee itself can be dehydrating, can be a diuretic. So like it's gonna get rid of some water weight potentially, and it could make you poop your pants, which will help you lose weight because you just have less poop in your body. But what we're talking about, like, there's not a specific food that's going to make you gain weight. It is the quantity and quality of that food. So you can have 10 cups of coffee. I would not recommend it. You could have 10 cups of coffee a day and it wouldn't change the amount of weight that you gain because you're still in a calorie deficit. If you are having 1 cup of coffee and that coffee is 1,000 calories from Starbucks because you like to get their frappuccinos, which guilty, you are most likely going to gain weight because it's 1,000 extra calories. Just think about what it is that's inside of the thing and go from there. The conversation here is cracking me up. Also, I really like sweets. Do I have to give them up to get great results or can I continue eating them? Girl, okay, you do not have to give up any type of food to do this. To lose body fat, to have a sustainable life, to have a routine that actually works for you and not just works for 12 weeks. I personally do not believe that cutting out specific foods is the answer, because for me, like, cutting out chocolate was like, I need chocolate, I want chocolate, like throughout the day, because I couldn't have it. But when I allowed myself to have an amount of it and it wasn't like this commodity or this beautiful thing I have to resist in order to get the thing I want out of life, it made the pressure so much less that I was like naturally just not eating as much of it. So you don't have to give up sweets, but I would also make sure, like, calorie deficit is king. So if you are in a calorie deficit and you're eating only cupcakes and you're hitting your protein goal, you may not be healthy per se, but you may not lose or you may not gain weight. So basically, I would make sure, number 1, that you're in your calorie deficit, and number 2, make sure that it's something that's sustainable. Because if you get great results in 12 weeks or 3 months because you've cut out sugar, that's excellent. But what's going to happen when you start eating sugar again? Are you going to gain all the weight? Like, what's going to happen? So make sure it's something you can actually sustain. Okay, moving on. Yes, and again, Megan mentioned the higher the protein, the more you feel fuller for longer, because protein will help keep you satiated, as will fiber. And that's why those vegetables are super important in building your meals, because you get protein and fiber, help keep you full. Megan had also said, I take casein at night to help me not feeling starved in the morning, and only if I have protein missing in the evening. This is a really great point when we're talking about casein, because it is released a little slower into the system. It's super good to have at nighttime so that you can wake up in the morning not feeling like you're gonna vomit from starvation. So that's a great point to make. Bringing us back to stevia, I'm with you. I don't think it's like the most delicious thing ever, and I think it leaves a weird taste in the mouth. So I'm not like the biggest fan of stevia, but is my phone too hot? Okay, we gotta be quick. We still here? Fine. Okay. Short version is, I don't love stevia either, but it is what it is, and it's still better than like sucralose or aspartame. But to be honest with you, I like cane sugar. I think it's great. Coconut sugar is great. Monk fruit is great. As long as it's like naturally occurring. That's why I like stevia, because it's from a plant. It's not lab made. But also, like, cane sugar and coconut sugar can be higher calorie. What's nice about stevia is it's extremely low calorie for the amount of sweetness you get from it, and that's why it's so widely used. So just be cognizant of what you're actually consuming. And if you have more questions, Google it. That's my go-to. Yeah, and my girl Annelle. Hi, Annelle. It's good to see you on here. She says, you're always bringing protein snacks over. And that is true, because let's just be honest, if I'm hungry, nobody's having a good time. Nobody, especially not me. And Sarah Lynn 16, welcome. I did not address this, but thoughts on colostrum. Honestly, I think that's a topic for another time, and I don't really know in what context you're referring, so let me actually message you. I'm going to take a screenshot so I can remember your thing. Let me message you about this specifically. Okay, Kim, my client, is on here. Get your workout in, sister. Good to see you on here. I'm glad you tuned in. Oh, and yes, I can get you the electrolyte recipe, and I think I'll post it in the group chat for everyone to have. If you guys also want it on IG, go ahead and send me a message. Maybe I'll go ahead and post it on my story so you see it. But okay, guys, that really wraps everything up. I know I said I'd talk for 30 minutes. You're welcome. Yapping. So I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to post this live to my IG feed so that it's on there, so you can always come back and refer, even though it's a literal hour long. But cool. All right, gang. Good to see you. And everybody enjoy your Friday. Have a wonderful first weekend of 2025. Make wise choices. I will be making a vision board talking about my goals for 2025. So enjoy. Have a wonderful weekend. And thank you for tuning in.